Hey guys, we will wait for people to show up. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've missed you guys. I'm so nervous for this video. It's not even funny. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Hi there. I'm so nervous for this video. How's your day been? As we wait for people to show up. Oh yeah. I did say a 6 and started like a couple minutes earlier, so. But disclaimer to this video, my mother is cooking dinner, so you will probably hear pots and pans as she's making dinner. I have 2 dogs, so they probably will be barking at some point because they bark at air. And 3, you never know what my neighbors will do. So just disclaimer, my house will probably be a little bit noisy throughout this video. But welcome to everyone that's here. Today we're going to be talking about my 4th single, Endless, which is super, super cool. Really surreal that it even was released. Just to acknowledge that I have 4 singles out is just a very surreal moment, let alone to know how many people are actually relating to my music. It's just such a cool moment. But we're going to be talking about Endless, kind of the story behind it, which I'm super nervous for, but I really feel like I need to share this with you guys. How do I have that many guitars? Actually, 2 of them are my dad's, and then the rest are mine. The one up there was from when I first was like a little girl. I was probably like 6 or 7. And then that one I got from a neighbor for free. The blue guitar and red guitar are mine. The bass guitar is kind of hidden, and the acoustic. And then the jazz one's mine. But then that yellow Yamaha and then that electric is my dad's. But I've kind of taken over with them. So my whole setup is all back here. There's my keyboard, my amps, my record player. It's pretty cool. I love it. But we're going to be talking about kind of the backstory of Endless and then also what the lyrics mean to myself. But we're going to get into that. Again, like I said, disclaimer, if you weren't here, my house will probably be a little bit noisy. Mom's cooking dinner. I have 2 dogs that bark at air. But it's okay. We will get through it. So, Endless, just to say, if you haven't listened to the song, rough overview, it's a song about my experience with sexual assault, PTSD, and then along with that, just, I haven't rehearsed any of this, so I'm super nervous for this. How I found peace through trying to forgive these people that did this. I'm gonna start with the first thing I went through. I was 14 years old. I was just, having guys kind of start to get to notice me. I was never that girl, you see those girls in elementary and middle school that just all the guys flaunt over and they think are absolutely gorgeous and they're so popular. Well, I was not one of those girls. I was the quirky, awkward girl that nobody liked. I didn't really get noticed until I was around 14 and 15. I'm 17 now. And it was a guy that I didn't know. He was an acquaintance, but I saw him all the time because we went to the same place. I'm not going to disclose names or where it took place, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about the situations. And he, this is so hard to say in front of people. He molested me for 3.5 months, all the time. It was May through mid-August. So this year marks, I think it's been 4 years now since it happened. 3.5, 4 years, something like that, since it happened. And I still have to see him all the time. And during that moment, not only did I not know kind of what to do, but when people are that abusive, they isolate you. So on top of it, I was just starting to get noticed by guys, and I didn't know how to respond to that. I was being molested. I was dealing with so many other things in my life at that point. Like my grandmother had just passed away. I was dealing with some bullies. I was dealing with mental health. I was dealing with like a million things coming down in my world at once while going through this. And to be that isolated, you get trapped in those thoughts and those emotions and what that person is feeding into your head. You know, yes, he was physically abusive from the being molested part, but then you also have to think the emotional, mental trauma that's causing. You know, you're constantly dealing with someone that is not only degrading you as a person, but that's filling your head with lies that you can't tell anyone because of this, or that, you know, fill in the blank. You know, there's that manipulation that, for one, being that young and dealing with all those changes in my life at once, you know, I just kind of had a shutdown moment. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't say anything. I had a journal that I wrote in. I didn't even write in my journal about it because I didn't even really, you know, I had the fear that someone would read that journal if they found it and that they would know that that's going on. And you know what? It was one of those things that, I mean, sometimes he would just do it in plain sight too, which that sounds really odd, but it would happen. And to give an example of just how controlling, you know, it was, I remember we had gone on a trip. It was for a week, and I went to the bathroom, and he had sat next to me on the bus. Didn't want him to, but he did. I went off the bus, and he followed me off the bus, stood outside the bathroom until I was done in the bathroom, and then followed me back onto the bus and sat right next to me on the bus. So that's just a very, very, very small thing to just show how controlling it was, let alone dealing with that all the time. There was that isolation from friends, the isolation from family, and like I said, it wasn't like, you know, a one and done deal. It was weeks on end, days on end, Monday through Friday, and then Sunday and, you know, Saturday might be like the only day that it didn't happen. You know, that's how it went, because we went on all of those trips and they just add up. So, you know, there was a lot of, I'm not going to go too much in detail, but there was a lot of inappropriate things happening in that situation. And I remember just eventually got to the point mid-August towards the end. I remember my mom not really knowing why I was acting out. She was super frustrated and she didn't understand. And part of it was because I wasn't telling her all the things happening in my life. Like, she knew my grandmother passed away and some things, but she didn't know everything I was dealing with at once because I hadn't told anyone. So I remember being in my room and I broke down crying, slamming my fists on the ground. And I remember her coming in, and I remember telling her that that was happening. And I remember how terrified I was, but also how freeing it was to not have it all bottled up. Because I had bottled it up for so long and just kind of lived not just in that abusive situation, but with all the trauma from it and not told anyone. That's kind of like if you stubbed your toe on a door and you're hiding the fact that you did and you're trying not to scream. That's what it felt like on the inside. And not much came about the situation. Not much was done. Like I said, I still have to see him. He was kicked out of the place that I went to, but you know, I still have to see him at different places, and it's a hard thing. But when you start to accept the aspect of forgiveness that's ultimately what's setting you free. And that's really what Endless is about. I also went through, just 2 months ago, I went through with somebody else. I was also sexually assaulted by a family friend. I'm not going to disclose names or anything else, like I said. It was very traumatizing. And when you have PTSD, that doesn't help because everything freezes up. So as much as I kept saying, no, I don't want this, my body wasn't reacting to that. So that was very traumatizing. I haven't really talked about that one really at all to anyone. Only a couple close friends know about that one too. But that happened once. But that's really what Endless is about, is those situations. Many of my friends don't know about it. Most of my family members don't know about it. So this is a very real moment that I'm having with you guys, because it is hard to share. And it's not that I've necessarily hid it from them, but it's something that, as much as I'm an open book with select people. And my close friends know about this stuff, but then all my other friends that follow my stuff, they don't. So to hear things like this is always hard. And like I said, even my family, a lot of like my cousins and aunts and uncles, they don't know about it. So this is a really big moment, and it's an empowering moment. And if any of you guys have gone through it, I would say that it's nothing to be ashamed of going through that. It's nothing to be ashamed of for not saying something to someone sooner. That was an immediate thing that I had, was that guilt, was why didn't I say something sooner? If I said something sooner, then I wouldn't have this PTSD that I have now, which I still have it to this day. I wouldn't have these issues. I wouldn't be panicking all the time. I wouldn't be scared all the time. And getting out of that mind frame and saying, no, it's okay. You didn't have control over what someone else chose to do to you. It's okay because you made that choice eventually to say that. When you start to accept those things, you fill yourself with so much more peace. Mindset is such an important thing, and it took me a long time to learn that. What I feed my thoughts is just as important as what I feed my stomach every day. That's what fuels me. That's what makes me happy or sad or upset. And, if any of you have gone through something like that, I'd love to hear your story. It's always something that I appreciate. I did a cover of Demi Lovato's song called Sober, and I changed it about self-harm, which is something I struggled with in the past as well, if you did not know. And so many people have shared their story with that. So there is, needless to say, no shame in sharing your story. Even publicly, it's actually very empowering, and you would be surprised how many people actually relate to it. With that said, though, there's, my testimony with it. I know I didn't go into too much detail with them, but that's me. To say one more thing before I kind of get into the lyrics and what they mean, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, and basically what it does is it's a mental disorder of where your mind can't acknowledge kind of reality and your past. So an example is my hips are a really big trigger for me. I hate when people touch my hips. I don't like when anyone touches them. It freaks me out. So my brain acknowledges if somebody touches my hips. Let's say like one of you guys touched my hips. My brain is acknowledging, okay, this person in my past hurt me through grabbing my hips and doing X, Y, and Z. This person's grabbing my hips, so therefore this person's going to hurt me. That's what PTSD does. It's your subconscious mind not being able to acknowledge reality from your past. And it's very scary. It's very traumatic in and of itself. You can have panic attacks from it, nightmares, flashbacks. I get all of it. There's different forms of PTSD due to how long you've had it. So if you've had it like a month, it's this. 3 months it's this, a year or more it's this. I have it's complex PTSD, which is like past a year or something. But that's kind of what that is, because I know a lot of people don't know what it is. But I'm gonna get into the lyrics now, and we're just gonna kind of dissect it a little bit. I'm not going to read every single line, but I will read quite a bit of it and just kind of explain more to you now that you guys know the stories that I have with it, and it can kind of help you grasp more how personal this song is to me and how also empowering it is. But the first line in the verse is, in my mind on repeat, I'm just trying to retreat to some safety. I feel like this is one of the more explanatory lines that I had in my song, but basically what I was trying to say through this was that this trauma is something that I can't forget. It's constantly on my mind. This fear is constantly on my mind. I don't ever feel safe, and I can't escape that, which if you were here for hearing the stories, you guys would kind of grasp that that's what was happening in those situations. Hi, Bubby. The second line is, clear as glass, you hold me in your grasp. I am trapped, so trapped. This is one of those moments when it doesn't matter what abusive situation you go through. It doesn't matter if it's verbal, mental, emotional, physical. It does not matter. You feel trapped. That's like one of the most immediate responses is, I'm trapped. I feel stuck. I don't know how to get out. And it was one of those moments that I was stating in that line. It's so clear that I feel trapped, but nobody else is seeing it. And yeah, that's basically what that line means. The next line is, you're the puppeteer, you hold the strings to all my endless fears so dear. This is probably my favorite line out of the entire song, is probably this line right here. What I was saying through this was, when you go through abuse, it's kind of like the person is controlling everything that you do. You know, that manipulation and abuse is so strong that it eventually kind of starts to shape your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, everything, until they just kind of have you under their thumb, which is exactly what they want. And it's sad, but it's true. And that's really what I was saying, is that I didn't feel like I had any control. I felt like every move I made, he was making. I felt like everything I was doing, he was controlling it. Every thought I had, he was controlling it, for both of them. And that fear was constantly there from that. And that's really what I was saying in a very unique way. I love the idea of just, like, you think of a puppet and there's always the puppeteer that controls the puppet, and that's really what it's like in abusive situations. You know, they are just controlling everything that you do. The next line was, captive to your tactics, I adapted to it happen gradually. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but all I'm saying there is that I'm trapped in everything that you're doing, and I don't know a way to get out. So the pre-chorus, it says, choking on the chains wrapped around my throat and vein, drowning in constant fear, soaked from head to toe, like breathing in smoke with air that just won't clear, a trap that's got my tongue, will no more silence. What I was saying in this pre-chorus was that silence and that fear of saying the situation. Like I said, the one when I was 14, I didn't say anything about being molested for 3.5 months. That's a long time to not say something. There's always a reason why someone does something, and mine was that fear. And not just that fear, but also, you know, feeling like I couldn't speak about it. You know, it's one of those things that what I was trying to say there was, this is what it feels like, I'm suffocating from not talking about this. It feels like something is keeping me from speaking. Almost, you know, if you're in water and you are submerged in water and you're trying to talk to your friend underwater. Have any of you guys ever done that? Like, you're in elementary and you're in a pool and you're underwater and you're trying to talk to your friend and you're like, well, what are you saying? It's completely muffled. I can't even understand what you're saying. That's what I'm trying to say in that. That's what it's like. Or when you're at a bonfire and there's a ton of smoke because somebody accidentally threw in a bunch of green leaves and now it's everywhere and you're coughing up a storm and you can barely breathe. Hence me, stuck at the one thing that keeps me alive, which is breathing. Asthma. It's a beautiful thing. But, you know, that's what it was like in that situation when you're in that intense of a situation and you feel like you can't talk about it. It's almost like someone just put a muzzle over your mouth and you can't speak at all. The chorus, the first half of the chorus, I said statements that are questions I hope can be statements one day, and I'll read it and you'll kind of understand, I guess, what I mean. I said, how can someone forgive the one who stole their innocence? How can someone give grace to the guilty? How can someone forgive the one who broke the boundaries? How can someone give mercy to one unworthy? These are all questions I've had myself. You know, immediately after someone's hurt you or anything, it doesn't matter whether it's abuse or not, your immediate reaction is, I don't want to forgive this person. This person took my food. This person did this or that. Why would I forgive this person? Why would I give them the time of day? And we as people, we just kind of shut them out. And that's our immediate response. And to an extent, it's kind of sad because we just build up anger in ourselves instead of allowing ourselves to feel peace. And that was a very big concept. You know, I purposely made these questions without answers because anybody, even if you haven't gone through abuse, you can relate to having some of these questions of how can someone give grace to the guilty? Guilty is a strong word, but take it into a different light and say, how can someone forgive the one who did this to me or did that to me or said this horrible thing to me? And you can relate to it in that sense. And it's, you know, it's difficult. I think everyone can acknowledge that it's difficult to say and humble yourself that I forgive you and let this go. And I mean like fully let it go. I don't mean just like, you know, half-ass let it go. I mean fully let it go. But with that, I hope that these can become statements, meaning that how can someone give grace to the guilty? Well, I did. And that's where that kind of empowering moment comes into play, is that they are questions which can change into statements, and that's something that's so powerful. Hi, Rachel, you're okay. It's not like you haven't heard the song before. The other half of the chorus is, I'm stronger than anyone can see. I can't let my past define me. I want to be free, feel my heart sing, so peace can fill my brave soul. Need to let go intentionally so the weight of these burdens can't keep holding me. Those lines basically were saying that it's that longing. It's that longing for peace. It's that longing for fulfillment of I'm okay again. Like when you're going through abuse, you don't feel okay. And even after, you still deal with the trauma of it. Even if you don't have PTSD, you still deal with the trauma of it. And even if not, you can think of any situation in your head when a friend's hurt you, whatever, you still have that longing to not only fix it, but to not feel like that person's going to hurt you again, or that person's going to do X, Y, and Z again, if you put it into your own context and in your own life. And that's what those lyrics are saying. It's not longing for it. Seems forever, will this ever end? This constant, endless fear. So I have to try to be relentless in my forgiveness. Those few lines are probably the most powerful in this entire song. I've listened to so many songs about sexual assault, and the common thread that doesn't happen in any of them is that they don't ever say, one, how to be okay, and two, they don't ever talk about forgiveness. Like, rarely do you ever see, if ever, especially in today's culture, when it comes to sexual abuse and sexual assault, anything about forgiveness. And that was something that really hit home for me. I remember sitting in my bed. I had tried writing about this song a million times, and I sat there and I just questioned, what am I missing? Why can't I write this song? And it hit me. God really hit home for me, and it was forgiveness. This is what I'm missing. This is that common thread that I'm missing, is forgiveness. And just if you let that soak in, it's such a powerful thing to think about. Even, again, in your own life, just people that you need to forgive or yourself that you need to forgive. It's a thing that genuinely will set you free. And in the last lines, that's what I'm saying, is again that longing to want to forgive that person. I acknowledge that no, I haven't fully forgiven those people. It takes a really long time to do that if I ever reach that point. But that's the goal. It's every day striving to be an overcomer, and every single day striving to forgive those people. Not because they necessarily deserve that, but because my soul deserves peace, and I deserve to be happy and have that peace. In the second verse, we're going to move on. It says, PTSD, never heard of such a thing before until it happened to me. You'd be surprised how many people don't know about PTSD, or how the big misconception with PTSD is that only people who are or have been in war have PTSD, which isn't true. PTSD actually comes from any traumatic event that you've gone through, or it can happen. It doesn't happen to everyone, but it can. You could go through a crash and it happens. You could be in a bad fire and it happens. It doesn't just have to be sexual assault or war for it to happen. But I remember not even knowing what it was until I had had all the symptoms I had, the nightmares, the flashbacks, the panic attacks. For a good few months, I remember just like typing in Safari just a long thing of all my symptoms, and that was like the first thing that popped up was PTSD. And I read through it, and I just sat there baffled, and I said, that's what I have, that all of it. And it just kind of, I specifically used the words PTSD because I wanted people to know that I wasn't just talking about fear or anxiety. I wanted them to purposefully acknowledge that that's what I was talking about. And the next line, it says, anxiety, the monster in disguise, the one that keeps haunting me. Impossible to not regret, lying here in a sweat, I can't forget. The anxiety I definitely had with kind of, PTSD is a daily thing. This whole entire verse is kind of about the symptoms of PTSD and working up to that panic. It's, in it, the anxiety comes from PTSD because it is a traumatic disorder. So I don't know how to describe it. You know, it's kind of, anxiety in this line is kind of like that shadow that's over me or that's haunting me, is kind of what I meant by that. It's something that's always there. Your shadow is always there. There's light of some sort. The moon, an actual light, the sun, it's always there. And that's kind of what I was trying to say with the anxiety, that it's this almost monster in my mind that constantly follows me that I can't escape. And the third line where it says impossible to not regret, lying here in a sweat I can't forget, when it's saying that I was trying to describe that panic attack without actually saying a panic attack. So in that, if you actually listen to the instrumentation, it starts out very mellow, and it feels like it's picking up pace. And I purposely did that because I wanted to build that panic up when you're listening to it, as if you're actually having a panic attack yourself. Isn't that interesting how music works? All of you are probably sitting there like, what did you just do to me? But captive to memories I adapted to what happened gradually. Again, it's that panic attack. There's the PTSD, so I acknowledge that's what's happening. There's the anxiety that built, then the impossible to not regret, lying here in a sweat. It's like you're having a flashback. And then captive to memories, again, flashback. You know, I adapted, you know, I just became kind of numb. When I said adapted, I just kind of meant that I have become numb to my PTSD and this trauma, is kind of what I meant by that. Again, it goes back into the pre-chorus, which was again about the silence. It goes back into the chorus, which we had talked about that already and what that meant. If you didn't hear it, you can go back in the live stream, I'm pretty sure, and listen to that. But going to the bridge, it says, it's your word against mine, the evidence just doesn't align. The truth's in the story has been told, and I know that it's mine. The biggest thing that you go through when you go through sexual assault is that unless you were raped and are pregnant, it's really a he said, she said situation. And that's so difficult to identify what's real and what's not, because sadly people will lie about that stuff. People will lie because they want money or they don't like a person, and as baffling as that seems, happens all the time. And that makes it very difficult to receive any sense of justice in that situation, or to receive, you know, an acknowledgement that that actually did happen. And in the bridge, it's kind of saying that despite the fact that it is our word against each other, I know it's true, and I know what happened. It's kind of a confirmation of yourself that this is what happened and it's not okay. And again, it goes back into the choruses. It has 2 more choruses, which again, we talked about that. And then it goes to the outro, which is forgiveness, forgiveness, forgive. And I knew when I was writing the song and I came up with the forgive aspect of it, that I wanted the last line to be forgive. Because ultimately what this song is about, despite the fact that it does share my story and my testimony with sexual assault and with PTSD and the trauma of everything, my biggest goal through this wasn't just to have people relate to the story and to feel comforted by it and to receive peace knowing that they aren't the only ones going through it, but my ultimate goal was to have people acknowledge that to receive that peace that they're longing, they have to forgive that person and themselves. And then on top of that, that forgiveness outweighs justice. Like, your justice is that forgiveness. Because I can go to a court of law, and reality is they really aren't going to do much. Sadly, you know, I've dealt with it. Trust me, they won't do much. That peace isn't going to come from anything else. It's not going to come from money, fame, food, although food is amazing. It's not going to come from any of that. All it's going to come from is forgiveness. And I knew that I wanted my audience to hear that this song is about forgiveness. That was my end goal with this, is that my audience would acknowledge that this isn't just a song about that, but this is a song about forgiveness, which you rarely see with songs about sexual assault. But that is my song Endless for you all. I hope that you all enjoyed as the sun is like blinding my face. I hope that you all enjoyed hearing this and hearing my testimony and hearing my story and hearing more about what the lyrics mean and what it's all about and what the song overall is about. It's definitely a touchy subject, but it's something that it's so, I don't even have words. It's so amazing to tell my audience that, because I've been so nervous to share this with you all, because it is so personal, and these people can also possibly see this, so that's also been another thing that's kind of been making me have more anxiety about it and be nervous. But it's so amazing to share Endless with you and to share the story with you. So I hope that you all enjoyed this live stream and that you learned more, a little bit more about myself and about the song, and that when you listen to the song that you get a little bit more from it than just Endless. So I love you all.